Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our awesome community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, "They Are Taking My Child." Hello legal redditors, I need help and I don't have a lot of hope. On Sunday afternoon, my wife suddenly passed away from congenital heart failure. She was 29, she has an 11-year-old daughter. Her daughter's father and her were married a short bit, but then divorced. With my wife's passing, they said they wouldn't have me disappear, but that is not the message I have received from them. I've been texting my stepdaughter on the phone. I pay for messages of love. Love you kiddo, and last night I was told to stop texting her and I can have this phone back. They had split custody 50-50 with not really an amicable communication structure. In the state of Kentucky, are there any laws or guidances for the step-parent? My wife had no will written out, anything that might give me reason or hope to step foot in a courtroom. They are going to take my little girl away from me, the little girl I have helped raise since she was in diapers. I've just lost my wife and I cannot lose her too. And a user in the comments said, step-parent custody is a thing, although I cannot speak specifically for Kentucky. It will be an uphill battle and the legal fees may be more than you can handle for something that is far from a sure thing. The only thing you can do is consult a family law lawyer in your area. Good luck. And another person in the comments said, consult a family lawyer, you may be able to get visits. Custody is pretty impossible unless her father is a serious danger to her and badly unfit as a parent. And guys, if you were in this situation, what would you do to not lose your daughter? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled, Update, They Are Taking My Child. So I figured it would be appropriate to do a follow-up post since my original message had so much support and love. Original post here, I have not heard from my kids since the service for my wife. I spoke with my family attorney and he said that the state of Kentucky passed laws a few years ago that essentially reinforced the concept that the step-parent has no laws, rules, policies or anything at all in the family dynamic. So I am effed. We've tried to be amicable to the father. I have called, texted, no answer and no response. He came by the day after the service to get her school bag, a pair of shoes and a doll her mother got her. And since that point, no contact. I'm going to keep trying, reaching out to the various family members on his side, trying to get him to even pick up the phone, let alone talk to me. As for the legacy of my wife, I am taking what remains of the life insurance policy after the payout for the service and putting it into my kid's college account. Anything left in my wife's checking account is going to a custodial account for my kid so that when she turns 16/17 and starts looking at a car, she has a down payment for something that is safe. And then we just endure. Thanks to everyone that gave me a sense of hope, your well wishes and any attempts at trying to help me through this horrible time. And unfortunately guys, that is how the story ends, and as usual, as I always say, legal advice does not always have a happy ending, it is just the real life. And by the way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to like the video if you want to support me. And I would also appreciate if you could post some star emojis in the comments. The next one is part 3 to the story. Non-legal additional information. It has been about 3 months since my wife's passing. I've seen my daughter once since the service and I had to beg for that. I attempted to set up a meeting with the father in order to hammer out some details such as would I continue to carry her on my insurance, phone plans, Spotify plans, clothing, field trips, anything that I can do to stay in her life. Unfortunately, he could not make the first meeting, continued to ignore me for a week, and then when I chased down his mother, he called me back. This was around Christmas time and I asked to see her as my family and I could really use that. He suggested the day after Christmas and I agreed. Then he continued to ignore my requests for confirmation and please until 7:30 p.m. Christmas, to which he asked if I still wanted to see her. I spent 2.5 hours with her at my parents' home and it was just wonderful. I felt like her dad again, but it was too short of time. In that time, I wanted to talk to him about things such as the life insurance money, going into the college account, additional money and time spent, and he said we would talk about it. New Year's Eve, I sent a message over wishing them a happy New Year's and letting them know if she wanted to call, I would be up. No response. A week later, I traveled for work and wanted to check in to see how she was doing in her new school. He pulled her out of her existing school and moved her into a new one, and that is when I found out that I was blocked from any text or phone calls. And pretty much at that point no one in their family would take my call, so I started to send her letters with pictures, nothing negative sent in the letters, just keeping her in my thoughts, hoping she's doing okay, keeping her updated on our pets, little and minor changes etc, but absolutely nothing negative. A friend of mine suggested a law firm local to the area that might be able to help, and they suggested that we go forward with the suit in an attempt to mediate resolution for any time available. He was served last week and the trial is set for 2 weeks. They have made a motion to dismiss. Legal relevant additional information. As for the point of this post, because I wouldn't write it here if I weren't additional requests for legal information, we are attempting to mediate a resolution. However, in the event they don't go for it, we are attempting to make a case that under KRS 403270 I could be considered a de facto custodian. It's a long shot, but I want to make sure that I have the relevant documentation or witnesses or information that would help my case. Anyone have any clever ideas or suggested avenues to help? So far, I've come up with bank statements reflecting deposits into lunch accounts, school supplies, etc., insurance documentation showing that I carried her, any conversations between my late wife and I that might reflect monetary plans, vacations, etc. But if there's anyone else that might have any good ideas or suggestions that might help, I would appreciate it. I know it's a long shot, but it's the only shot I've got. And guys, I'm not sure about your feelings in regards to this story, but when I read this story, I can really feel how desperate OP must have been. So far, really a sad story, and actually I am hoping for a happy end because, as you might know, I don't read the stories in advance, I just read as they come. So by now, I don't know the ending myself. Let's hope for the best. Final update, they are taking my child. The petition lacks standing to pursue custody of the minor child. Shout out to the Commonwealth of Kentucky for continually being one gigantic dumpster fire of a member of the union. I went into the courtroom with documented evidence of the BlackRock 529 college account I started for her, my coverage of health insurance for her, my bank statements detailing expenses paid for her school and life events, pictures of our time together for several years. I made impatient pleas that I was not just some male figure physically present in the household, but a parent that helped her with schoolwork, cooked and cleaned, did laundry, took vacations and school events with her. Documented evidence did not suffice. I have received PMs in the past about people asking how to prevent a situation like this from occurring in your household, and the answer is update your legal agreements with all parties and have it notarized and signed by your local family judge. A will does not suffice. And wow guys, I gotta say, lately the stories that I'm reading don't really have a happy ending, and this is not really my choice either. I just picked the stories that sound interesting and I don't read the ending in advance. Also, I'm curious what you think about these, let's say, more negative / non-happy ending stories. Should I continue with them or should I focus on the more positive ones? Or maybe a mix of both? Let me know in the comments. And the next one is titled, Crashed my bike and broke my arm due to a dog that was not on a leash. This took place in New York, but not New York City, which I know has its own set of bike laws. I am doing voice to text since my dominant arm is useless at the moment, so apologies in advance for any awkwardness due to transcription inaccuracies that I might not catch. So I was out for a bike ride on Monday afternoon. The stretch of the bike path I was on where this occurred has a river to its immediate left and a wooded area to the right. The part of the trail I was on curves in a way that causes the wooded area to limit visibility for people traveling north. I was southbound and I saw a runner coming up, so I hit my bell to make sure that she was aware of me. Right after ringing it, a small dog came tearing out of the wooded area and charged directly at my bike. I cut my wheel to try to avoid hitting it, as a collision almost certainly would have killed the dog and sent me flying over my handlebars. Unfortunately, the dog was really upset with my front wheel, and since I could not turn left without doing a swan dive into the river or hitting the runner, I wound up turning too sharply to the right and flying over my handlebars anyway. The runner rushed over to see if I was alright, and just as she was taking me through a concussion check, an older woman came around the bend from a parking lot that is adjacent to the bike path, maybe 30 yards south of where this happened, and immediately started flipping out about her dog. The runner explained what had happened, which led to Dog Lady going absolutely ballistic about how I could have killed her dog. She went on for a bit and I was pretty out of it, but the gist of it was that I got a lecture about how dogs need an opportunity to run free from time to time, so people should be more careful, and that it was my fault anyway because ringing my bell set her dog off in the first place. I did not engage beyond saying that I needed her contact info because I was on an absolutely ridiculous adrenaline high and did not trust myself to stay composed, and losing my crap on her was not going to help the situation in any manner. The woman then picked up her dog and made a beeline for the parking lot, but the runner took a few pictures of her as well as a couple of cars with the license plate visible as she got in and pulled away. The runner called the police so I could file a report, and then I borrowed her phone to call a friend for a ride to the hospital. Luckily, one of the maybe 3 people whose number I actually have memorized was available. While we were waiting, the adrenaline began to wear off and I started to notice just how badly my arm was hurting. The cops showed up first, the runner and I gave our statements, and she hung around while I waited for my friend. The x-rays I had done were not encouraging. I have an impact fracture as expected. The worst of it is a fractured radial head, but there's also damage to my wrist and hand. And my shoulder hurts like a mother effer as well. I am seeing an orthopedist tomorrow, but the guy I saw at the emergency room said that I should consider 12 weeks in a cast to be the baseline, but that could go in either direction depending on how I heal. Unfortunately, my job absolutely requires 2 working arms, and there's not any sort of position my company can shift me to in the interim, so I will almost definitely be out of work while I am recovering. But hey, on the bright side, I've got a date with a cute runner who's the type of person who will stop their day and stick around to help someone they witnessed getting hurt, so at least there is a silver lining. To be clear, I was not riding excessively fast. I checked my speed about 30 seconds before this happened and saw that I was going 12 miles per hour, but I dropped a significant amount of speed as I hit the curve because I've had close calls with runners drifting into my lane in that spot before. Almost every entrance to the bike path has a sign with rules posted on it that include keeping dogs leashed at all times and essentially reminding pedestrians that while they are welcome to use the trail, it is primarily a bike path, so they should remain aware of their surroundings and not walk 3 abreast, etc. Basically, what I'm saying here is that I was doing nothing illegal or reckless when this took place. In fact, I probably wouldn't have been hurt badly at all if I landed on the ground, but unfortunately, I more or less did a Superman directly into a tree. Sorry for the novel, apparently painkillers make me chatty. Anyway, here are my questions. How will I get the dog lady's identity and contact information from the police? Will they just hand it over if I ask, or will I have to get a lawyer involved to subpoena it or something along those lines? I fully intend to sue this woman for every penny that I am entitled to and will be in touch with a personal injury attorney later this week. For now, I am just wondering what damages I will be able to claim. I am going to incur some terrifying medical bills despite my insurance, and as stated earlier, I will also be unable to work for a significant amount of time due to the nature of my job/company. My phone also broke in the crash, and while I haven't had an opportunity to look at my bike yet, need to borrow a second set of hands to check it for damage thoroughly, at the very least the fork is cracked. The phone is a Pixel 4 XL that was 2 months old and in nearly perfect condition. The bike's frame/fork are pretty sought after by collector/enthusiast types and worth a decent amount of money if in good shape. Both were basically flawless before the accident. The fork is now unusable and the frame has significant cosmetic damage at the very least, which would have an enormous impact on its secondary market value. Would any of this fall into tough crap territory for me, or is it all stuff that I can realistically sue for? The personal injury attorney I mentioned is a friend of a friend who is a great lawyer and will work for me on contingency at a very fair price. Unfortunately, he is out of the country and essentially incommunicado till Friday morning. My preference is to wait for him by a wide margin, but would I be putting myself at any sort of disadvantage by not getting the ball rolling immediately? And a user in the comments wrote, "I'm not a lawyer. First, I'm glad you were not hurt worse and wish you a speedy recovery. I've had similar injuries coming off a horse, and if they offer hardware versus just a cast, I'm here to tell you that I would do that. I had a distal radial fracture with many fragments, and a plate and screws was offered with a 6-week recovery plus PT versus a 12+ week cast plus PT. I was back to normal activities in about 8 weeks, taking the hardware route. That out of the way, there is a leash law. The loose dog caused the accident. Your attorney, when you can meet with him, can advise you best on the next steps. In the meantime, you can call in to the police to get their final report, which should include the info of the dog owner. This info would be good to have in hand when you meet with your attorney. Your insurance will likely also send you a brief form asking where the accident happened and for any involved parties, and may try to subrogate as well for the medical cost. I would also talk to your employer HR to find out what your options are for short-term disability, and then I would try to have a calculation prepared to describe the lost wages. Your attorney will guide you through all of this, so you really don't have to do anything right now except notify your employer that you are injured and get well. Best wishes and good luck on the date. What a good Samaritan for not only assisting you, but getting the evidence and a date. Nicely done. And now an update to the bike's story. This is probably not the most interesting update you will come across, but I know this forum likes updates, so I may as well. Long story short, I was contacted by the husband of the woman whose dog caused my crash. He wanted to keep this out of court for reasons related to issues that his wife was going through. It's not my place to elaborate on it, but it is something that I understand very well due to a member of my family dealing with something similar. Anyway, he offered to cover my medical expenses and pay for a new bike. I agreed to go this route, and to say that he's been fair with me wouldn't do justice to the situation. My arm is still a little uncooperative at times, but the doctors I've seen are actually thrilled with how fast/thoroughly I have healed. I am also still dating the cute good Samaritan, which has been an interesting experience since we started seeing each other shortly before the pandemic took over the world. I am actually a few towns over from the initial containment zone in the New York City suburbs, but it is going well and we have an interesting how we met story to tell. So yeah, all things considered, this has had a happy, non-dramatic ending. Thanks again to everyone who offered advice in my original post. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.